On some level, I prefer not to be recording this video today. It's a difficult topic to talk about. It's a difficult topic personally. It's also a difficult topic when, in my position, someone that shares a lot of stuff around spirituality and mental health and teaches and coaches and does all this kind of stuff. But I feel like it's really important to address where the intersection is between mental health or mental illness and spirituality. The reason I want to address this is because I made a video recently, if you've seen it, I talk about the overwhelm and the way that I've been feeling, and over recent times I've really been struggling with essentially with my mental health, quite a difficult depression, some kind of old thinking patterns and old feelings have really surfaced in a way that it has been very difficult to deal with and quite sobering as well. When you get to a point of growth where you feel like there are certain things you've left behind, it can be really quite disconcerting when stuff that feels really old comes back. It's like, oh shit, I thought I was done with this. Damn it, I thought you were gone. But it's important to address, because the path of awakening isn't a straight line of ascension. It's not like it just goes better and better and better, more and more peace, calmer and calmer, more bliss, more bliss, more bliss. It really isn't like that at all. It's very cyclical in its nature. If you've read Mindsets for Mindfulness, you'll see in there that I talk about the enchanted worldview and the importance that our worldview can have on our growth, on our potential, on the way that we experience these kind of things. Now, if I'm completely honest, like recently, it's the worst that my mental health has been in a while, while still somehow having a lot of space around it. I get drawn in and I forget myself, I forget my practice. I become completely absorbed in the thoughts as if they're true. I really can be overwhelmed by feeling, and in those moments, if I'm being completely 100% honest, in those moments there's a part of me that is just like, what good is mindfulness? You're like, when feeling that overwhelmed, it's kind of an act of surrender, and I try and remind myself of all the tools that I have. But at the same time, there is a point where it's just like survival mode, like I'm really not feeling okay. Just take away the pressure, take away the need to be okay, take away any way in which your practice, or speaking personally, my practice has become a concept. Like, oh yeah, but Ricky, you do all this meditation, you have what you call it non-ordinary experiences, like some things that have really grown, like my consciousness itself has expanded a lot over like the last few years. If that becomes internalized as a concept, it can actually work against you, because then you don't feel so good, you're struggling, and then it's like, come on Ricky, there's no there's no room for you to not feel great. There's no room for you to be feeling this stuff. Like, I thought we were done with it, So this is really important. What does it mean if we're embarking on a spiritual journey, if we're looking into deep truths of reality, if we're questioning who we are? That comes with some shadow work, that comes with some darkness. which has to be negotiated. It has to be handled in the right way. For me, what I find important, and what I find important with this experience, is that the use of skillfully labeling, I find it really useful. Like, I can forget, and I do forget, and I think I can be hard on myself, but I forget the background of where I've come from in terms of my mental health. It was really not good, you know, and it, speaking truthfully, I think as time has gone on, and I've been open, you know, Mind That Ego is almost 3 years old. Sorry, not professional burping on a video, but whatever. Mind That Ego is almost 3 years old. I've, in events, at talks, in the book, in articles, I can talk about my story. And I can talk about it to the extent that then it like my history becomes a story that I'm recollecting. And I can forget that it was very much my lived experience, which in a way is a good thing. You know, if you're at the stage where you can go, oh yeah, I forgot what that was like, it can be a good thing, but it's important to remind myself, and for you and for where you're at, to remind yourself of where you've been and where you are now when this stuff resurfaces, and all the tools that you have and all the growth that's happened in between. So skillful labeling for me was just to go, Ricky, this is a bout of depression. It's a bout of depression. Right, okay, that makes sense. I've experienced depression a lot in my life, as well as anxiety, which isn't as bad at the moment at all, which is good. I can take that. I'm not paranoid, that's also good. Maybe a little bit, or whatever. But yeah, the importance of skillful labeling. That label, when I gave myself permission to just take a step back and to say, like, this label actually gives me permission to feel, it gives me permission to be easy on myself. It gives myself a bit of understanding and a bit of insight into what this experience is. Do I want to identify with that label? Do I want to be like, I am depressed? No, I don't. And this is where it becomes skillful or unskillful. What I don't want to do is let that label become heavy, you know, like a weight on my shoulders. It's used temporarily as a way to understand my experience, but it is there only for that purpose. There is learning in what I'm going through right now. There's a lot of stuff being experienced, and like having spoken to a lot of friends, it seems like there's collectively a certain heaviness, a certain resurfacing right now, or just general surfacing of some really difficult stuff. I'm a big believer in the idea that the wounds that we have, or the trauma that we have, or the limiting beliefs, all this kind of stuff, if it remains unhealed, it will surface into consciousness at the right time, when it's there to be dealt with. And there are certain things right now for me that are surfacing that are very difficult to handle, but they're there because I can, even though it might not feel like it. And talking to you as well, if you're experiencing stuff and you feel like, why is this happening now? It's there because you can handle it now. You know, whether that's through resilience and endurance, or through looking at different ways to manage this stuff. It is understood that if you have a label, it can be detrimental. It can also provide relief. So there's this balance, this real delicate balancing act. What I do know is that over recent years, when I've moved away from labeling things in a restrictive way, it does seem like, quote unquote, the depression shifts quicker. You know, this very Buddhist idea of impermanence, is important here, and not viewing things as rigid and fixed. And I feel like in the past, when I've just had that kind of identity, I am depressed, it's become something that has been harder to move beyond, because I've seen it as rigid, I've seen it as fixed, and even maybe the shame that comes with it. You know, if you're having these experiences, if you're feeling really low, feeling really depressed, then it can be hard to move on from that, you know. And I've had experiences recently where I know that I've got the potential of like holding on to that and being like, okay, things aren't good because you're feeling that way, and kind of getting stuck, and then exacerbating the problem. So, I'm talking right now like in the middle of this, which I don't usually do. I'm conscious of the, this idea of talking from scars, not wounds. But ultimately, I've got two choices to make, right? I've got two choices to make. One, which is I just stop producing content, which is tempting. Like, when I'm in this space, I'm like, how can I share how can I share what, and I question myself, question the value of the stuff that I have to share. So that's one option. The other option is to just say, yeah, whatever, I will just share what I'm going through, because it is important, because it's not like, Eckhart Tolle, right? I sometimes think, like, does he ever have a bad day? does he ever wake up and just be like, fucking hell, power of now is not really working? Like this idea of guruism and perfectionism in a spiritual setting is very real, and there is a risk that a lot of people who are struggling mentally or emotionally find spirituality for some kind of solace. So that's one reason to be wary, but also people can have these experiences when they embark on a journey of consciousness through meditation, through psychedelics, through spontaneous experiences. So it is important to understand the shadow stuff of this, and I don't want to shy away from that. I don't want to, it's important to be truthful that this path is incredibly difficult, and that it can, at times, it can feel completely overwhelming. That is part of growth and self-actualization. Full stop. Now, is it the same for everyone? No. I'm also aware that my history of mental health and mental illness means that I was kind of a few steps behind before starting this, and I'm sure that some people who don't have such a strong history with this stuff might not necessarily oscillate as much, but again, it's kind of insignificant. It's a form of comparison, which I will try my best not to do. But yeah, like, even in these moments, and this is the interesting thing, even in these moments, I have a safety net, and like I have my meditation. I have, even if it's just a memory or an insight into what these kind of mystical experiences are, or what it feels like when I'm just in, in a real clear state of consciousness, very much in flow. I have that, and I didn't used to have that. So even as a safety net, it is really important. And the tools that I have to process, and the understanding. Now I'm going off track, conscious of the time. Always conscious of the time, maybe that's something to work on. What do I want to leave you with? What do I want to pass on as an insight in this video? I think it's important, and talking partly to myself, right? I've never, and particularly since I've been on a path of self-actualization and self-inquiry. I've never had a bout of depression, or the dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it. Be free with labels too. I think this is good. Find labels that work and that fit. I've never gone into the darkness without a lesson, ever. It is teaching in a profound way, and it leads to growth in a profound way. But there are times, and this is what faith is, this is what having faith is. Faith is easy when you're in flow. It's easy when there is synchronicity after synchronicity, and you're just like, fucking hell, life's amazing. I feel great, I've got so much energy. This is, having faith then isn't necessarily a difficult thing to have. But what about when you're kind of on your knees, like, fucking hell, this is difficult? Then faith is knowing that there will be learning, there will be growth, there will be a lesson through these challenging times. That's true faith. And really, what is the difference between past me and me now? And it's faith. It's faith. Like, you've got to have faith that there's something bigger at play. And I know that there's this, nurturing force, that I'm moving towards growth, even in these darker moments. This is the difference between enchantment and disenchantment, and they're also cycles. Do I feel disenchanted? Yeah, of course I feel disenchanted a lot of the time. Yeah? Do I feel in flow? Not at all at the moment. Have I had any synchronicities? Not that I can remember in the past, few weeks, or actually maybe a few small ones. They were quite cool, but point is, I'm going all over the place with this video. I don't really care, because it's a stream of consciousness, which is mainly for me, I guess, to kind of express and try and crystallize this into something that hopefully you can take away. Point is, on the path of growth, there will be darkness. There will be times of immense challenge. They're the times that count. They're the times where faith really shines through. And think about it, faith is really the period of time in between the lesson and the learning and the real uncertainty around that. I've got insights, I've got little flickers of what the lesson is right now. I've not picked it up, and I have faith that I will. I have faith that the state will change, and it does. It changes, even throughout a day, it changes. So ultimately, it's looking at, and it relates to depression, it relates to, you might just be, in a real low ebb, whatever, it's the same thing. Have faith, not only that things will get better, but there's learning in this, and there's growth in this experience. If you can have that, that is one of the most profound changes in your psyche that you can ever have. It gives added resilience, it gives added resilience to know, like, the present, and talking of present, sometimes the present is a very difficult thing to feel like you can withstand, and there's a lot of talk about being present. I talk about the value of presence, but what about when there's a lot of stuff that is incredibly painful that's surfacing? Then it's a different challenge, and it's a matter of resilience, and having faith actually that things will change, whilst also acknowledging this stuff as it comes up. Was there a lesson in that? I do hope so. I do hope so. But key takeaways are, spiritual growth is cyclical. And by that I mean it is not a straight line. It goes like this, right? something like that. There is always growth. It's not always clear. And faith is understanding that no matter what you're going through, there are lessons, and that you will learn. And if you are fortunate enough to have the muscle memory, the experiences of being connected to something greater, these kind of mystical experiences, use that. Know that it doesn't go away. Know that the disconnection itself is an illusion. This is important, you know. And label skillfully if you have to. It's not necessary, but if you feel the need to just put your hands up and say, this is about depression. It might not even be, the need for a medical explanation. It might be putting your hand up and going, this is a tough time. I'm in the trenches right now. Like, this is tough, but I'll get through it. You know, this is all part of it, and we're living at a really challenging time. The world's in a weird place. We're going through this like collective clusterfuck of stuff going on. Sorry about the language. So it's important to remember that there's always learning through even the darker moments. And if you're watching this and you're connecting with it because you're in a lower place, I really wish you well. And I hope that these insights have given you something to work with. Above all else, keep going. Above all else, know that there will be learning from it, that you will grow through it. And at the very least, on a very basic level, that you will be okay and you will feel okay again at some point, because everything is impermanent. Everything is in constant flux and always changing. And just remember that, you know, sometimes there are clouds, but then the sun will shine through eventually. So there you go, another video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back soon. I also will be publishing the podcast within the next few days, once I get into a bit of flow with my creativity. So I hope you enjoy that, but again, thanks for watching, and wherever you are, have a lovely day.